Back in middle school, there was a drawing of a particular anime character hung up in our science room for some reason. I had no idea who this character was, but he looked cool as shit. Keep in mind that this was back in 2007-2008, so we didn't have YouTubers making videos on the latest and greatest to come out each season. I didn't go on anime forums either, so I was pretty much left in the dark for 4 years. But that's when I stumbled upon Katekyo Hitman Reborn. And there he was. After 4 long years, I finally had an anime to match with the face. The Reborn series is one of Shonen Jump's best-selling manga, with over 30 million copies in circulation. This franchise was huge. Video games, trading cards, radio and drama CDs, even concerts where the voice actors would sing character original songs and openings to the anime. This was all way back in its heyday, but nowadays you can find a lot of this stuff on YouTube. But what happened to the Reborn series? Well, we're gonna have to take a trip back to 2004, the year Shrek 2 made its debut.
Harold.
Shrek!
Fiona!
Mom!
Harold.
Donkey!
The story follows Tsunayoshi Sawada, the most hopeless middle schooler you'll ever meet. He scores an average of 17.5 on tests, can only vault over 3 boxes, unlike some other characters, and can't even do a full chin-up. What a loser. I guess that's why his nickname is Damitsuna. One day, his mom hires a tutor named Reborn to help him get his life together. He has a shape-shifting chameleon named Leon as his companion. Despite his looks, Reborn is a full-on hitman, and his main goal was to prepare Suna to head the Vongola family as their 10th generation mafia boss. Along the way, he makes new friends who will eventually become part of his family. Gokudera is a silvered-haired punk who doesn't take shit from anyone. His whole gimmick is that he has dynamite laced throughout his body and can ignite them out of thin air. After Suna saves him from almost imploding, he swears his loyalty to him and strives to become his right-hand man. As such, Gokudera refers to Suna as 10th or Judaime. And I'm not gonna lie, this gets pretty annoying because he says this every single time.
10代目10代目は10代目10代目10代目の右腕の座を狙ってやがるな10代目の右腕はこの俺だ
Yamamoto is a carefree baseball player who's often oblivious to Suna's whole mafia business. To him, it just seems like Suna and Gokudera are just playing pretend, and he wants in as well, which angers Gokudera to no end.
今度10代目の前で勝手にあくびしやがったらその口にこいつ突っ込んでやるからなまたそんな花火なんか出して花火じゃねえ
また始める
Ryohei is the charismatic boxing fanatic where everything he says and does has to do with boxing. You're rarely gonna see him go through a sentence without using the word extreme to describe everything he does. Lambo is a 5-year-old hitman. He looks like a cow. That is all. He has a one-sided rivalry with Reborn, but no matter how hard he tried, he just never won. He holds in his embarrassment until he can't anymore. That's when he brings out the 10-year bazooka, allowing him to switch places with his 15-year-old self. Unfortunately for him, old habits die hard. Finally, we have Hibari, the head of the disciplinary committee at Namimori. He leads a gang of Josuke wannabes, but whips out his tampas whenever he wants to deal with people himself. Hibari is obsessed with keeping Namimori safe, so obsessed that he has the school anthem as his ringtone. If Bakuman is anything to go by, Reborn started off as a gag manga before transitioning to a standard battle series, and you definitely see this in its first and third season. Season 1 has 33 episodes, but 16 of which can be considered filler. I say this because it's mainly slice-of-life episodes that don't contribute to the story in any major way, but they are stories that appeared in the manga, so it is considered canon. Episodes 1 through 9 and 19 serve to introduce our main cast, as well as some supporting characters who will be important later on. Episodes 20 and 26 is the Kokuyo arc, which is the first major arc of the series. The entirety of Season 3, however, is made up of filler, meaning you can skip it altogether. This is coming right after the massive arc that was Season 2, so if you are looking for a brief change of pace, you can choose to watch it. After this, however, Reborn really buckles down on its story and forgoes the slice-of-life elements for the most part. With that said, the beginning of the show can be kind of a slugfest to get through, and you might ask yourself, Well, why would they introduce such a serious story arc near the end of Season 1, only to go back to more lighthearted episodes? It kinda ruins the mood, don't you think? And yeah, I totally agree. The build-up does get ruined past episode 26 because there's 7 episodes of fluff before moving on to Season 2. I feel like this is one of the shows where you constantly have to tell your friends, don't worry, I swear it gets better. And it does. It still has its problems, but I'll get to that later.
笑わせんなよ赤ん坊のくせにあ腹痛あらより顔が痛い
The premise of this show really suited the gag manga formula. Whenever Reborn smelled the slightest bit of cowardice from Suna, he'd shoot him with a dying will bullet, or desperation shot. The translation's kind of funky, so I'm gonna stick with dying will bullet. This bullet turns off all the external limiters, allowing Suna to risk his life to do things he otherwise wouldn't. His clothes explode right off his body, and he becomes temporarily invincible in exchange for his id taking over. This becomes a running gag in the first season. Eventually his friends just accept that he's gonna be in his underwear at some point and don't question the drastic change in personality or the giant f***ing flame on his head. But this wasn't just for comedic relief, it actually helps Suna overcome his fear of basically everything. There are times when Suna and his friends are up against the wall. He can choose to stand by and let his friends get hurt, or he can be the one to save them instead. Reborn's methods of teaching him this are pretty extreme, but in the end, Suna really needed this push if he wanted to protect his friends. Although Season 1 is made up of canonical filler, it does serve 2 purposes. First, is to show that most of these characters are still normal middle schoolers. Suna never wanted to become a mafia boss in the first place. He always insisted that he isn't fit for the role, right up to the very end. The kid has enough things to worry about, and he's not gonna let this strange baby control his life. As for Yamamoto, his main passion was baseball. Although he is forced to fight in the Kokyo arc, he's still being mindful that he doesn't get hurt too badly because he still has to play for his baseball team. But because he couldn't stand seeing his friends get hurt, he chose to pick up kendo in order to protect them. Ryohei is in a similar situation, except he chose to fight in order to keep his sister Kyoko safe. And then we have Hibari, who has no interest in joining Suna's family at all. All he wants is to keep the school safe and fight strong opponents. Second, these episodes deepened the bond Suna shared with everyone because it allowed him to come out of his shell. He didn't need Reborn's help anymore to help him express how he really feels. He didn't think of them as his family. To him, they were all just precious friends. The Kokyo arc that I've been mentioning this entire time is a great example of its growth. Suna and the gang face off against Mukuro, the person behind all the attacks on Namimori's students. If there's anything you should take away from this video, it's that Mukuro isn't to be f***ed with. His goal is to send the entire world into World War III just for the hell of it, and to destroy the Mafia as a whole. He is essentially Pain from Naruto because he can enter the 6 paths of pain, the 6 realms of Samsara. He uses his ability to take control over Gokudera's body. Suna, not wanting to hurt his friend, was backed into a corner, but that's when Suna went full-on badass mode and beat the shit out of him. This is Suna's hyper dying will mode. The difference between this and his usual dying will mode is that this turns off all the internal limiters, allowing him to enter a more calm state of mind while fighting. He also got his signature X gloves that allow him to use his dying will flames to increase his strength. I wish I could play his theme because it's the most iconic soundtrack in the entire show, but knowing me, it's probably gonna get claimed, so look it up, it's some good shit. It's funny because when I first watched the show, I was kinda confused. The pictures told me I'd see this, but I got this instead. What the f***? But that's when I realized I had to be 26 episodes in, which sounds like a long time, but I think it's well worth the wait. The next season is where the show really starts to pick up because we're introduced to the Varia, an elite assassination squad under the Vongola family. They face off against Suna's family to see who will succeed the 9th Vongola boss. We're also introduced to the Vongola rings, an heirloom only to be worn by the true boss and his guardians. They are the Sky, Storm, Cloud, Mist, Lightning, Sun, and Rain rings, and they each signify the duty each guardian must uphold. Introducing accessories or something along those lines is pretty common for shonen action series. If I saw this when I was a kid, I'd be freaking out at how cool these rings were and try to decide which of the 6 guardians I would be, like some cringy quiz you'd find on Quotive.
What the fuck is that?
Oh, do we do it? Alright, we're doing it. Question 1. What is your favorite color? Sorry, it's protocol, so don't kill me. You can't find me anyway. Or can you? No! The Varia aren't necessarily rivals to Suna's family, they're more of an antithesis. They mirror Suna's guardians when it comes to fighting style, but they put more of an emphasis on power and strength, rather than camaraderie. It's a group of individuals against an actual team, so to speak. Let's take a look at Mr. Voy himself, Squallow.
Voy! まだ懲りないらしいな。1週間前に逃げ出さなかったことを後悔させてやるぞ。
The Guardian of the Rain is described as someone who puts a clean end to battle, washing away all the enemies. This last part is important because putting a clean end to battle doesn't necessarily mean cutting down all your enemies. If anything, the Guardian of the Rain wants to resolve conflict without the use of force. We see this during Yamamoto's battle with Squallow, where he only wanted to defeat him and not kill him. This is one of the more straightforward roles, but the Cloud and Mist are a bit more complicated. The Guardian of the Cloud guards the family independently and avoids fraternalizing with them. The Guardian of the Mist confuses their enemies and creates illusions to hide the family. From what we're shown, both these Guardians don't want to be associated with the family. The Cloud makes sense, but I guess it's really up to the individual on whether or not the Mist Guardian wants association. Or maybe that's part of the illusion, who knows. It shouldn't come as a surprise, but I found the big boss man Zanzus to be the most interesting character of the Varia. The build-up to his fight against Suna was done really well. He is the complete opposite to him in terms of personality, and he's not above using underhanded tactics to get what he wants. His powers are really cool as well because he has the same power as the 2nd and 7th Mongola boss.
どこまでもカスがそれほど消えたか。かっけえの。
Overall, the Varia arc was a nice segue into a more serious story. My one gripe with it is that there's just so much dialogue during fights. You'll have one person do a move, and then immediately after, you'll have Reborn or someone else on the sidelines explain what just happened. I didn't enjoy it back in grade 9, and I still don't enjoy it 11 years later. I mean, I get why it's there, and maybe it's because I haven't watched a long-running shonen in a while, but to me it took away from the actual fight. That's another thing. Reborn is a fairly long-running shonen with 203 episodes. There were times when the fights lasted a bit too long for my liking, and other times they were over in an instant, ending pretty anticlimactically at that. But the worst offender has to be the 3 to 4 minute recaps, and later, literally 5 to 6 minute recaps if you're counting the opening. Again, not something super uncommon in shonen battle series, but given that most action series I've seen nowadays don't have recaps for the most part, I definitely feel a bit gypped. There were also the occasional recap episodes in the later seasons, but it's pretty minor compared to everything else. Unfortunately, the anime was not able to adapt the entire manga. The anime ended in 2010, with the Future arc being the last story they cover. They definitely took their time as it spans across 5 seasons. This arc gave us a lot of answers to questions, and they also introduced the first generation Mongola family. These guys were gassed up since the Varia arc, and it was so cool to finally see them. I don't know if you noticed, but everyone from the first generation family has an uncanny resemblance to Suna's. Like, they aren't even trying to hide it, just look at Lambo and Lampo.
なんで雷の守護者が牛の子供なの？
うかー！ラボさんをバカにすんな！
やだやだ、鼻水まで出して。もうダメ、帰るものね。
They really acted as mentors because it allowed each character to go through a tremendous amount of growth, because they each learned what it truly meant to embody their respective roles. Hello, it's me, Editor Kiri here, and I just had the biggest realization ever. So, apparently, Seasons 6 and 8, which I thought were canon, were actually filler. And I didn't even realize this because they just blended in so well with the story. And I was going through the chapters of the manga because they weren't adding up with the episodes. And I was just like, holy... I just got bamboozled so hard. But if you are planning on watching the anime, then I do recommend you watch this because it is, like I said, it blended in pretty well. So, you know, I'm not even mad that I got fooled. Enjoy the rest of the video. We also get some fan service because we get to see what Suna's family looks like 10 years in the future. All of them except for Suna, because reasons. This arc also puts a lot of emphasis on the rings, because now we learn that they can emit dying will flames. They're used to open boxes that can summon anything, from animals related to a certain element or weapons. These two aspects are used extensively throughout this arc, which made for some pretty cool fights. but the continuation of the lore behind Reborn and why there are others like him is what really kept me interested. However, you're gonna have to read the manga in order to find out. I know it sucks, but I really recommend you do because the final 2 arcs trump the first 3 arcs by leaps and bounds. Revisiting Reborn was a lot of fun, and to my surprise, there were still events held in Japan as early as 2018 and 2019. There was even a mobile game released in 2020 in Southeast Asia. This means I wasn't able to play it for myself, but from what I can tell, it's a side-scrolling beat-em-up style game where you can swap between 3 characters. Personally, the game looks kinda bland. I was expecting it to be turn-based like FGO or Epic 7. Either way, it's great to see that there's still a fan base and a market for a series that ended almost 10 years ago. The last chapter was released back in 2012, and the author, Akira Amano, would go on to write LD Live. Oh god, what the hell is this title? Which garnered mixed reviews according to Mal. She was also the character designer for the Psycho-Pass manga. This is one of the series that really needs a reboot, or at least a continuation. If Bleach can make a return, we gotta bring back Reborn. But until then, I hope you all enjoyed this video. If you did, leave a like and a comment, and subscribe to my channel for more anime content.